Where's Johnny? You're gonna need a big approach. Why so serious? Roll out.
I am Iron Man.
This is a tasty burger.
Welcome to the In Session Film Podcast.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Chasing the Gold. We are here to try to predict the Golden Globes, which is a very difficult thing to do because they tend to throw in some curveballs and it's hard to predict what those curveballs may be. Will, how are you feeling about the HFPA and the Globes this year?
How am I feeling about the HFPA? Same I'm feeling every year. Like it's just going to be a mishmash of a whole bunch of crap that nobody sees coming. I mean, some of the stuff we'll see coming, of course. There's often the general consensus, but when it comes to, I don't know, the musical or comedy is always a mishmash of nonsense. So I feel great. Can't wait.
Yeah. And I should mention, obviously, the Globes are unique because they do film and TV. We're only focusing on the film nominations here. All right, Will, I'll let you kick it off. Why don't you read me your director predictions?
Starting with director. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, this one's interesting because they only do one. They do the best director motion picture, not drama or split between drama and musical or comedy. So yeah, the six that I have, and I should clarify, I have an alternate for each category, which I'll read off as well. But the six that I have in alphabetical order are Jacques Audiard for Emilia Perez, Sean Baker for Nora, Edward Berger for Conclave, John M. Chu for Wicked, Brady Corbet for The Brutalist, and Denis Villeneuve for Dune Part 2. And my alternate is Coralie Fargiat for The Substance.
Okay, so I also have your six. I had Coralie in there, and then I took her out when I saw that Wicked kind of exploded, and I put in John M. Chu. So
yeah, the Wicked thing I'm sure will come up frequently throughout this conversation. I don't know, Variety now doing this prediction discourse of Wicked maybe winning Best Picture and John M. Chu being in the director conversation, and then the National Board of Review naming Wicked as its top film of the year and John M. Chu as its, best director of the year. I have thoughts and feelings, but we're focusing on nominations, and I'm pretty confident that it will fall in the directing category most definitely.
Well, here's the thing, and we'll have another podcast about thoughts and feelings about everything going on. But we should, the Globes, they do love sort of big star vehicles, and they, pay attention to sort of what does well. And so I feel like, if anything else, Wicked just feels like a big Globesy thing.
Exactly.
And even if it does overperform at the Globes, that's still not going to sell me on it potentially doing that well at the Oscars. But I think, it just has Globes written all over it to me.
It does. I also think it's gonna be showing up fairly frequently at the Oscars. Just because it is a very obviously successful project, but I also think that has translated into a lot of love from critics, from other awards bodies. I just think it's kind of undeniable that it has a heavy or a firm cultural footprint, and that's probably going to extend across the awards conversation. But insofar as Golden Globes go, certainly John M. Chu is in the director conversation, and I put Coralie Fargiat as my alternate for The Substance because I think that I'm curious to see how The Substance lands at the Globes. Because it's an audacious picture, and her direction and her script are both, bound to be divisive. Maybe not the word, but I don't know. The Globes sometimes can go safe and populist, but The Substance then again has also had a pretty heavy following. So I'm curious to see how how it shapes up. I mean, it could certainly end up in the director. She could certainly end up in the director conversation and not someone like Denis Villeneuve or Edward Berger even. But at the same time, they're also technically, as even though they're making American productions, they are technically international directors. So it's always a question.
Yeah, and I mean the Globes, I feel like they like to make a statement, and
Mm-hmm.
having the substance do well could be their way of trying to sort of rubber stamp something and have a moment. So I could sort of
Yes.
see it go both ways. So for drama,
Mm.
I have The Brutalist, Conclave, Gladiator 2, Complete Unknown, Dune 2, and Sing Sing.
Okay. I have almost the same list as you. The Brutalist, Complete Unknown, Conclave, Dune Part 2. I put Nickel Boys in there. Sing Sing, and then my alternate was actually Blitz. So I don't have Gladiator 2 here. It's probably going to end up getting in. But I did want to toss a little bit of love toward Nickel Boys. It's my favorite film of the year. And I also think it doing well at the Gothams and a number of critics' bodies. It could translate to the Globes. The Globes have a very wide cachet of voters that's not just limited, obviously, to people focusing on box office success. There's a whole new award for that, as we saw last year. Um, Gladiator 2 is bound to show up there. So I wanted to throw Nickel Boys in. And I also put Blitz because as my alternate because I think that Steve McQueen, again, another international director from the UK, that is, his first feature film in quite a few years. I mean, yes, he had the Small Axe collection in 2020, but Blitz is a feature film, and those were all kind of like hour plus, not shorts. They were films, but I think they'll want to potentially throw some love in Blitz's direction, especially because that hasn't gotten nearly as much love as I think it deserves. I quite like Blitz. But other than that, I think this is kind of chalk. You know, there's a mix here because of again the split between drama and musical or comedy. So we'll get to those other films that'll probably round out the best picture conversation in that other category. But The Brutalist, A Complete Unknown, which I have not seen yet. I'll be seeing that on I think the 18th. That's just the one of those that comes out at the end of the year that people don't get a chance to see until it actually releases, unless that you're part of a different sort of group that I do not yet have access to. So, yeah, it should be interesting to see how the rest filters out.
Yeah, I did get a chance to see A Complete Unknown. I wasn't a
very
fan.
nice.
I wasn't a fan, but I don't think that matters. I think it's
Yeah.
going to get what it's going to get regardless of how people feel about it, just because of the subject matter and who's in it.
Mhm.
So yeah, and I can't remember if I mentioned, so the 7 that I had, like I have obviously an alternate. So I had The Brutalist, Conclave, Blitz, Gladiator 2, A Complete Unknown, Dune 2, and Sing Sing. So I feel like, and I don't know what to do with Gladiator 2. I mean, I feel like the Globes feel strongly about Ridley Scott projects. So like I could see Gladiator 2 doing really well at the Globes. I'm sort of torn on that one. I'm torn on Blitz for all the reasons that you mentioned. I don't know how that's gonna. I feel like that could go either way in terms of how it does. So those are some big question marks for me. And I feel like to some extent it wouldn't even matter. Like I feel like if Gladiator 2 has a good day at the Globes, it's not really gonna make a difference. Whereas maybe
I don't think so.
Blitz could use that boost, you know what I mean?
Definitely.
And Nickel Boy, yeah, and I think Nickel Boys is a great prediction because it's sort of peaking right at the right time. It's gaining momentum now at sort of the perfect time. So I could see that doing really well. I could see, we didn't really mention Ramel Roth and director, but I think that could happen.
I hope it does. I
Yeah.
just it's very crowded, and I think that a lot of the other names have been mentioned a lot more. I mean, yes, he won again at the Gothams and the New York Film Critics Circle, but I think that these other names have been being mentioned for months on end in terms of competition for director, and then John Chu being the one who's just kind of sneaking in off of the back of Wicked's resounding success at the box office, and again with critics as well, or at least other organizations. So I hope Ramel Ross is more of an Oscar pick than he is a Globes pick. But I really would like to see Nickel Boys end up in that 6 for motion picture drama. It's, like I said, my favorite film of the year. I think it's kind of undisputedly the best, with The Brutalist right up there with it. Like I said, I have trouble with the Globes because this voting body tends to have peculiar taste, in my opinion. Not everybody in it, but just as a whole, they tend to go in different directions because of the splits in the categories. So it makes for interesting conversation abound.
Yeah, so let's go to drama actor. I have Adrian Brody for The Brutalist, Coleman Domingo for Sing Sing, Ralph Fiennes for Conclave, Timothy Chalamet for Great Unknown, Daniel Craig for Queer, and Sebastian Stan for The Apprentice.
Okay, so yeah, my 6 in that category, I have Adrian Brody for The Brutalist, Timothy Chalamet, A Complete Unknown, Daniel Craig for Queer, Coleman Domingo for Sing Sing, Ralph Fiennes for Conclave, and Sebastian Stan for The Apprentice. And I am split in my alternate. This is where I swing for the fences because I just don't ever know what the Globes are going to do. They always seem to throw one person in there that you don't necessarily expect, and the rest just kind of line up with everything you've been hearing in terms of awards contention. So I have 2 names here as an alternate. I'm more confident in one, the first, than I am in the second. They are Paul Mescal for Gladiator 2 and Andrew Garfield for We Live in Time. And I'm
both of those are extremely solid alternates. Let me ask you, so you're saying they would sub out Sebastian Stan for one of those 2, I'm assuming?
That's correct, yes. I think that, again, The Apprentice is another movie that is going to be very interesting to see how the HFPA responds to in their nominations. I think the performances in the movie are undeniable. But I think that, and not that Variety's Actors on Actors series is any sort of precursor, but their response in not including Sebastian Stan because of how many publicists and reps for other actors turned down having their client sit with the actor who played Donald Trump in a film for a conversation, it just makes things really hairy. And so I'm curious to see how it's met here, if it shows up here, just because I think a lot of people in the wake of Donald Trump's reelection are very wary to, I don't know, throw attention towards a movie about him. No, it is not a glowing portrait of Donald Trump by any means, The Apprentice. I think the movie's fine. I think the performances are really what stands out. I'm just not sure how they'll respond. So yeah, I think that a populist pick like Paul Mescal for Gladiator 2 or Andrew Garfield, who is a very recognizable actor who's gotten a lot of acclaim for his performance and for his personality. And there's one thing that the Globes love more than anything else, and it's having recognizable celebrities at their awards show sitting at those tables on the red carpet. And I think Andrew Garfield is very recognizable. He's a Spider-Man, and he's also an endearing figure in Hollywood. And We Live in Time did not get a lot of love in terms of its release, and it's not going to be showing up, at other awards shows, in my opinion. I just don't think it has that sort of footprint. But he could be the out of left field pick.
Well, and that's one of the things, whenever I make any sort of Globes predictions, I always think about their love of celebrities, and I sort of factor that into who they're going to nominate, which is why I feel pretty good about Sebastian Stan, just because I feel like
true.
he's good looking, he's charming, he's like one of the internet boyfriends that people adore, so like they're going to want to have him show up. and he is having sort of a moment. But to your point, those things could also be said about Paul Mescal and Andrew Garfield also being two very beloved figures that the internet loves. So they would be alternates for him. I just feel like maybe the HFPA would be less afraid to embrace The Apprentice more so than other groups.
Fair.
And I feel like they're probably in a position to feel like they can make a statement where perhaps,
others aren't.
Right. Others aren't. So like maybe they're a little bit more removed from things, and that puts them in a certain position. But certainly, I mean, I agree with everything you said. I think The Apprentice is another one of those movies where I feel like it could goose egg, or they could go really big for it. So we shall see.
We shall.
Why don't you read me your drama actress contender?
Yeah, I have. I feel like this list is fairly chalk, but then again, it could go in a variety of directions. So, best actress drama, I have Marianne Jean-Baptiste for Hard Truths, Angelina Jolie for Maria, Nicole Kidman for Baby Girl. And actually, I shouldn't say it's chalk because here's where I think it. Well, Saoirse Ronan for The Outrun is my fourth, and then 5 and 6, and then my alternate I think could be a real mixture. I have Tilda Swinton for The Room Next Door, and I have Fernanda Torres for I'm Still Here. My alternate being Kate Winslet for Lee.
Okay, I there's a reason why I told you to read off this one, because I'm really struggling, and I have 7. I couldn't even narrow it down to 6 to pick an alternate. I have 7, and then I didn't even mention Kate Winslet and Lee, which is one of the most Globes things that the Globes could do.
It really
nominate
is,
Kate Winslet for Lee, and I can see a scenario where she shows up at the Globes and nowhere else. And we should mention, I talk a lot about campaigning and the role that campaigning plays. She is out there. And I mean, Leo DiCaprio hosted an event for her. Like, all of the A-listers are sort of coming out to push to support her. So I think probably she should be in my 6. And then I think Saoirse Ronan, I think for The Outrun is the person that I would kick out.
Wow.
Okay. Yeah, so I think I would probably do Angelina Jolie, Nicole Kidman, Fernanda Torres, Kate Winslet, Marianne Jean-Baptiste, and I have Pamela Anderson for The Last Showgirl. Because that just seems like a Globes thing to me. It seems like she's also been everywhere. It could be a moment for them to sort of recognize a star, like a star.
Yeah. Problem is nobody's seen that movie because the only people who have seen it are critics and anybody who attended the few festivals that it was at, because it's not coming out until January. It's getting a very, very limited release. It's a roadside attractions movie, and I think that like you said, she's been showing up in places because of critics' love, and the HFPA has critics involved in its voting, so it could certainly be a place for Pamela Anderson to show up. I think that performance is fine. I don't think it's a particularly good movie. I think the same thing though goes for Kate Winslet. I think that performance is fine in a meh movie. But again, these are celebrities, and it's possible.
I don't disagree with you, but here's the thing. I think with the HFBA being a smaller voting body, it's easier for people to push their movies and say, hey, make sure you see The Last Showgirl. Whereas with the Academy having so many members, it's a lot harder to get your smaller movies noticed.
Right.
So again, I feel like I would feel more confident about her showing up here, even more so than something like Critics' Choice. Like, I feel like if it's going to happen for her at all, it's going to be at the Globes.
Right. Yeah, it's also going to be hard for the smaller movies to show up with the Academy because every single member is going to take 6 weeks to watch The Brutalist. They're just going to split it up like a mini series, but that's a separate issue.
And I should say, if I have an alternate, I feel more strongly about Tilda Swinton than I do Saoirse Ronan at this point. If anything, just
it's interesting.
It's, an international director, and she's somebody that her Globes record is much more vast than her Academy record, so I feel like she's more beloved there than other voting bodies. So she's probably who I would put in as an alternate.
That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I think she gets in kind of because of what you said. International director. I think The Room Next Door, if it's going to get any love anywhere, which I think it deserves, it's going to be here and maybe on some lists, like end of year publications lists. But that's about it. Because again, this is another one that only people who have attended certain festivals have seen. It's coming out in late December, in limited release. So I think it's a really, really solid performance. I think them putting both Julianne Moore and Tilda Swinton in lead is weird. But if anybody's going to get the nod, I think it would be Tilda. And I think she could get in here. But you nailed it. Kate Winslet is doing a lot of campaigning. I don't want this to become like the go-to terminology we use every single time an actor or actress is like, hey, I was in a movie and I think it was good and I think my performance was good and you should nominate me, and then their friends do that as well. She could get too Leslie'd into the conversation. That's what I don't want people to use as a catch-all, because I think To Leslie was so unbelievably random, and Lee is certainly a wider seen movie than To Leslie was, even though that movie, Lee hasn't even been seen that much, but I don't know. It's going to make for an interesting awards season if Kate Winslet starts showing up places.
Yeah, and I should mention that's also one of the reasons why I feel really confident in Angelina, which I always did, but I feel like she's also somebody that's just been everywhere. Like, I just read Jane Fonda doing like a glowing review of her performance, so I feel like, you know, that matters. And there's something to be said, I have to just say, like, I wish other actresses got the same kind of thing. I wish we saw pushes for Marianne Jean-Baptiste the same way we are for these women. I've mentioned Ingenue Ellis Taylor gave my favorite performance last year. Like, where was that kind of push for that perform? You know, like, or the Nickel. Like, I just
You should ask Ava DuVernay what she thinks. She has been very, very quiet on her thoughts on how Origin was handled. I'm kidding. She's been anything but quiet.
And I mean, rightfully so. I think that's a big part of awards and awards predicting is like who has the means to get themselves in front of people. So that's a big thing to take into consideration as we look forward to Monday and see what these nominations actually are. Something to think about for better or worse. So let's move on to comedy. I have Anora, Amelia Perez, A Real Pain, Wicked, The Substance, and Challengers.
I have the same 6 as you.
Okay.
Anora, I just want to double check. It's Anora, Challengers, Amelia Perez, A Real Pain, The Substance, and Wicked. Yes.
Yes.
All right, we have the same 6.
And my alternates, just in case, which I don't even know. I mean, I guess maybe what would we call the weak link here? The Substance, I guess.
I guess.
Or Challengers, perhaps.
The Substance or Challengers, probably. I think Challengers. That's one of my favorite movies of the year. It belongs in any conversation in regards to best movies of the year, far more, in my opinion, at least, than The Substance. But I would say that those two are probably the weak links, because Anora, Amelia Perez, and A Real Pain have been getting love for months and months and months as part of a festival circuit, and then Wicked obviously is the big hit of the fall/winter. So I think that certainly as a musical, definitely also is going to end up in the conversation. So yeah, I would say The Substance or Challengers is probably on the weaker link side. Did you have an alternate here?
I had 2. So I had Thelma and Hitman, which I think Hitman would be the stronger of the 2.
Yeah.
Just if I feel like the Globes want to go out of left field, that might be something that they go to. But I feel pretty good about that 6, to be honest.
I do. I also feel good about the 6. I would love for Hitman to show up in this category, because it's probably the only place that it would show up during this award season. unfortunately, even though that movie is, again, another one of my favorites of the year. Another movie that I wish would show up places that just won't for whatever reason, because it's divisive in terms of critical reception. And regardless, I think it's one of the better movies and certainly better musicals of the year is The End, Joshua Oppenheimer's new movie. Really loved that movie out of TIFF. I talked to Joshua Oppenheimer for Geek Vibes Nation last week or a couple weeks ago, and the story ran yesterday. And I think he deserves all the love in the world, as does his movie. And it being a true musical, if they ever actually thought to include more musicals here than something like Wicked and Amelia Perez, the two heavyweights. I don't know if they split it 3-3 would be interesting, but I would love to see Hitman show up here. The End won't. I was just wanted to shout that out. But my alternate's actually Saturday night.
I was just gonna say, yeah. That's
Saturday night. Saturday night stinks, but it's a very starry ensemble work from beloved, famous director Jason Reitman, and I think that sort of movie gets a lot of love in a place like this. And so, if they decide that they don't know where they want to put the substance, or they don't necessarily need to give challengers love, I think something like Saturday Night could sneak in, just because obviously musical or comedy. Gee, what's a comedy? Oh, Saturday Night Live. That's funny. And there was a movie about that this year. Bingo, easy. Plug it in. I know it's not that simple of a process decision making wise, but Saturday Night, a lot of people thought it was going to be contending for an Oscar, or at least a spot at the Oscars. It could still, but I think that if it's going to, it kind of has to show up here.
Yeah, I think a screenplay nomination is not out of realm of possibility for Saturday Night. But
Yep.
you took the words out of my mouth. I think, big name director, starry cast. It's based on something that people know. Even if you're an international journalist, you're gonna know Saturday Night Live. So probably, I mean, Saturday Night would be even a safer bet than something like Thelma. That's a really smart choice. Why don't you read me your best actress contenders, Will? Actress in the comedy, I should say.
Yeah. So, best lead actress, musical or comedy, I have Amy Adams for Night Bitch, Cynthia Erivo. I'm going alphabetical, which is why I listed Amy Adams first, even though she should probably be last to be like the big, and stunningly. No, but I have Amy Adams for Night Bitch, Cynthia Erivo for Wicked, Carla Sofia Gascon for Amelia Perez, Mikey Madison for Honora, Demi Moore for The Substance, and Zendaya for Challengers. I'm pretty darn confident in that 6. Amy Adams maybe being the only one that I'm not like 100% sold on, but the rest I'm pretty certain will be here. My alternate is June Squibb for Thelma.
Well, I wish this was a little. I want us to get into a fight. But those are the same.
Maybe later.
I have.
You never know.
And I have the same alternate, which is June Squibb. I just feel like this feels pretty solid to me. You have a great combination of names, and then like passion performances, which is like Mikey Madison and Carla Sofia Gascon. I just feel like this just feels right.
Yeah, I think so too. Again, if like the split of the categories makes it interesting for someone like Zendaya to get in for challengers, I think Amy Adams too is not going to end up in the Oscars conversation. Even though a lot of people thought she was going to at the beginning of the season, before they saw Night Bitch, before they saw anything about Night Bitch, they were just kind of like, Amy Adams, a novel adaptation, big opportunity. In musical or comedy, sure, because it certainly falls into the comedy category more than it does drama. And it's a solid performance. I think she ends up getting honored here, not winning, but in the nomination.
And can I tell? I mean, Night Bitch, I should just say really quickly, is a movie that I really liked. I know I'm in the minority, but that
I'm seeing a lot. I'm seeing a lot more love for it lately.
Yeah, that performance really impacted me and has stayed with me, and I feel like I think about her performance a lot more than I do other people that are in contention here. I will say that if these are our 6, this is going to be one of the most fascinating categories of the night for me, because I feel like it'll be easy to say like, oh, Cynthia Erivo, she sort of makes the most sense, but then you also have the opportunity to like anoint like an ingenue and Mikey Madison. You have the opportunity to give like a veteran her due and Demi Moore. Like, I just feel like this would be such a fascinating category. I'm so interested to see if this is the 6, like where they go. All right, so I will read, which now that I'm looking at it, I don't feel confident. I mentioned I did these a while ago, but I'll read them anyway, and then we can argue. So for actor comedy, I have Jesse Eisenberg, Glenn Powell. I have Sebastian Stan for A Different Man. I have Michael Keaton for Beetlejuice, Gabriel LaBelle for Saturday Night, and then in my 6th slot, which is crazy, is Hugh Grant in Heretic, which is a movie that I love and a performance that I love. And then my alternate is Ryan Reynolds for Dead.
We have the same 7. Look, this category. this is so stupid. In no world should with no offense to any of these men, just the performances. Full offense to actually not even the performances. Full offense to the movies. In no world should Michael Keaton or Ryan Reynolds be receiving a nomination for Best Actor in any category. I don't care
and should
what
I
awards
say,
show it's at.
controversially, Ryan Reynolds even getting nominated for the first Deadpool was ridiculous to me. Like,
that was again another classic. Like, we don't know who else to put in musical or comedy, and that's a funny movie, and he's super famous. So here you go. Yeah, I like the Eisenberg shout. I like Glenn Powell in Hitman, and I love Sebastian Stan in A Different Man. I think he belongs here. Gabriel LaBelle for Saturday Night feels smart. Hugh Grant for Heretic feels like a natural fit here too, because he's great in that movie. But I just Beetlejuice, and Deadpool and Wolverine showing up in a Best Acting category just makes little to no sense to me. But it fits. I mean, it makes logical sense, I guess, just in terms of filling out a 6. But critical sense is out the window.
Which,
here.
like, can I just say, if Ryan Reynolds, which I think he will be number 6. I think I should have had Hugh Grant as my alternate, but like Hugh Grant is giving an actual performance. Ryan Reynolds is just being a different version of himself. But like, the Globes
a different version of himself.
The Globes are gonna want him to show up, and like him and Blake Lively, and she's gonna have a fashion moment, and that's what. But I agree. I'm equally frustrated. What I'm curious about is, so I have Sebastian Stan as a double nominee.
Yeah.
Do you think that A Different Man is a stronger possibility for him than The Apprentice? I'm assuming so.
It should be. Significantly better film, and while I think he gives a great performance in both, I think that A Different Man is the superior performance.
I agree.
Look, I think that when you give great lead performances in 2 movies that are both seeming to emerge as possibilities in the awards conversation, this is bound to happen, especially when you split it like this, like the Globes do. I don't think he gets, into Best Actor at the Oscars for both The Apprentice and A Different Man. Just like I don't think Timothée Chalamet is going to get, a nod for both A Complete Unknown and Dune Part 2, even though those are both lead performances, and the one that I have seen I think is quite good. I just think that this would make sense. A double nominee at this awards show, 2 separate categories, it would make sense. Both are really good performances. In my opinion, I think both should happen.
And we should mention the Globes have a long history of double nominees when they feel like somebody is having a moment, or they want to turn something into a moment. I completely agree with you. This is when I watched A Different Man, I felt like I wasn't watching Sebastian Stan anymore. And for me, The Apprentice, it felt like it was Sebastian Stan playing Donald Trump.
Right.
Which I should say is the same exact issue that I had with Timothy Chalamet in A Complete Unknown. I know a lot of people
Yeah.
say he didn't for me. I was like, oh, it's Timothy Chalamet giving a
Yeah.
performance. I just couldn't get past it, and I have the same issue with The Apprentice. So we'll see, but I feel like again, Sebastian Stan, he just seems like the kind of person they'd be like, "You're young and hot. Here are two Globes nominations for you."
Why
Just
not?
it just makes sense to me. Where should we go next, Will?
Let's round out the acting categories and do supporting because there's only 2 of them rather than 4.
Which
This
does
probably
not
lines
make
up.
sense.
Nope, but it probably lines up better with what the Oscars will end up doing. I mean, potentially. You never know. You want me to go first?
Yes.
All right, so I'll do Best Supporting Actress first. Here I have Danielle Deadweiler for The Piano Lesson, which, if you're going to talk about category fraud, you need to start there. I have Selena Gomez for Amelia Perez. Does not belong here. Just doesn't belong nominated, period. Ariana Grande for Wicked. Felicity Jones for The Brutalist. Isabella Rossellini for Conclave. And Zoe Saldana, again, category fraud, for Emilia Perez. With my alternate being Saoirse Ronan for Blitz.
Yeah, we have the same.
Damn it, Shadan.
I'm sorry. I know we should. Maybe from now on I should just ask you. But I mean, it doesn't even seem. It just seems like these are solid.
Yeah.
Who would you say is the weak link if we're gonna be if we're gonna kick somebody out here? Who would we kick out?
Selena Gomez.
Yeah.
It's not a good performance. It's not a good performance, and it's in a bad movie. I know it's beloved by a lot of people for whatever reason, but I don't get it. I don't get it at all. Look, I think that it's getting the acting love that people expected it to get. I think there are 2 actresses out of the 3 that belong or deserve nominations, and Selena Gomez just isn't one of them. I'm sorry.
You're not wrong. You're not.
But she's
wrong.
super famous, and it would make a great red carpet moment for Selena Gomez and Ariana Grande, 2 former child stars, to be, alongside one another in line for potential Golden Globe Award.
And she's gonna be a double nominee because she also has Only Murders in the Building. So I think she's gonna have a great.
I forgot that show
Globe.
existed.
Yeah,
not gonna lie.
Yeah. And you know what's sad is we started the season thinking Saoirse Ronan was gonna have a double Oscar nominee year, and now it's looking like she may come up with nothing, which is really a shame. And I'm with you. I really, really liked Blitz. I think maybe you and I are on a raft alone. I feel like that movie just is not getting, but I thought what she did in Blitz in particular, I think even hit me more than The Outrun. I just thought she had so much warmth, and I really love that performance, and it's really a shame. And I hope you're right, Will, that the Globes will embrace Blitz more because of Steve McQueen, and maybe she shows up here.
Yeah.
But I'm not feeling.
I'm kind of with you on her performance in Blitz hitting harder than the one in The Outrun. I certainly expected her performance in The Outrun to hit me harder, just because I thought it was going to be. I mean, it's definitely a heavy movie and a heavy performance, but I think it's also shrouded in a lot of narration, and there's a lot of her walking around looking at stuff while her voice plays in the background. And it's very contemplative rather than, you hear movie about with an alcoholic character starring a movie star, and you immediately think showy performance. And she gets a couple of moments in The Outrun, but it's not nearly as big as I think a lot of people expected it to be. Same kind of goes for Blitz, but I think it's somehow an even more emotional performance. And she gets to have a bit more range even, which is weird considering the story that you see in the outrun. So I don't know. Man, I know she's only in her like early 30s, but it's been a long time coming already for her. I'm really just like this. It's starting to feel to me like between her and Timothy Chalamet, not to make this conversation about my guy as well, but like are they just gonna continue to act and be great in everything that they're in practically for the next 20 years, and then finally when they're in their 60s somebody might be like, oh gosh, we haven't given them one yet.
I
Give
mean,
them.
they made Leo DiCaprio wait a hell of a long time. They made Kate Winslet wait for a hell of a long time. And as we
Yeah.
always mention, like, it never seems like anyone ends up winning for their best work.
No,
You
they
know,
don't.
it's like I could see Saoirse having like a Julianne Moore Still Alice type of a win. And as I've mentioned several times on this podcast, never forget that somebody like Glenn Close has never had her moment at all, which is always a positive. I think we take for granted that like, oh, eventually they're gonna win, eventually they're gonna have their time, and sometimes that just doesn't happen at all. So I
This is
hope,
true.
and particularly in for Saoirse, just because as a performer, I find her so interesting, and I feel like a lot of times she make choices that I don't feel like she are obvious, and
Yeah,
she, for me, really disappears in the work that she does.
I agree.
So I hope that I'm wrong. Particularly, I think she's one of the most exciting actresses working. Period. But
Couldn't agree more.
to transition to supporting actor, and also one of my beloved character actors finally potentially getting his due. So I have Guy Pearce for The Brutalist, Pray, the prayer circle of
The prayer
Guy
circle
Pearce, and
is
also
far and wide.
Clarence Macklin. As I've mentioned, Sing Sing being my favorite movie of the year. It seems like between, you know, Sing Sing, a lot of people were ready to write it off just based on this past week and the nominations we've seen. It seems like it's still very much in contention for
Oh
things,
yeah,
thank God. But Clarence Macklin for Sing Sing, Denzel Washington for Gladiator 2. He is the best thing about that movie.
correct.
Absolutely loved that performance. Kieran Culkin for A Real Pain, Stanley Tucci for Conclave, and Yura Borisov for Nora.
So we do have a difference here. Only one.
Hit me.
I have Yura Borisov for Honora. I have Kieran Culkin for A Real Pain. I have Clarence Macklin for Sing Sing. I'm going to save my difference for the end, just for dramatic effect for the first time. Guy Pearce for The Brutalist. It really, really bums me out that Guy Pearce is so great in The Brutalist. It doesn't bum me out that he's so great, but just in a year where I think Clarence Macklin is just undeniable and truly, truly incredible in Sing Sing. And he did win the Gotham, which is great. But to put him up against Guy Pearce giving one of the best performances I've seen in this decade in The Brutalist. Not that Clarence Macklin isn't in that category as well, but it's besides the point. Denzel in Gladiator 2, you nailed it, is the best part of that movie. My difference is I have Edward Norton for Complete Unknown. Again, this is sight unseen. This is solely on just stuff I've read, stuff I've been hearing. I don't know what to make of it. I need to see the movie. And my alternate is Jonathan Bailey for Wicked, which is the best. He's the best part of that movie.
Can I say that if Jonathan Bailey, like, I would happily trade, no offense to Mr. Tucci, I would happily trade Stanley Tucci for Jonathan Bailey, because I really do love that performance. I think it's so charismatic, and it would be such a Globesy thing to nominate Jonathan Bailey. That's actually really smart. A really, really smart pick.
Thank you. The only reason I didn't include Stanley Tucci here is because I think that beyond Ralph Fiennes and then Isabella Rossellini, just because she's the only woman in the movie, pretty much.
And an international icon.
Exactly. I just think that is such an ensemble-driven movie that you could go in one of 4 or 5 directions in terms of who the next biggest, if you will, performance is in that movie, between Stanley Tucci and John Lithgow and a number of others. Cardinal Benitez. His name is escaping me because he's kind of a newcomer, but his performance is quite good as well. Cardinal Adeyemi, Tedesco too. I mean, he vapes. He's a pope that vapes. What are we talking about here?
Yeah.
My girlfriend's looking at me
A
like I'm crazy.
meme-ified
This is
cardinal.
true. Yeah,
It's true. Yeah.
this happens, but I just think that Stanley Tucci maybe I know he's the most famous of that grouping, but maybe just gets lost in the shuffle because of it. And so I threw Jonathan Bailey in here because of all the wicked love that's going around, and also because, again, like I said, I think he's kind of the best part of that movie, maybe save for Ariana Grande.
Well, let me throw a possibility at you. What if we have that same issue with Anora, where they don't know which supporting actor to nominate, and so nobody gets in, which makes room for a Jonathan Bailey?
I hear
Because
you. I think
Jonathan Bailey is more of a name check than a Yura Borisov.
True. What I would say is that with Anora, so much of the love in terms of who people expect to receive the awards adulation is for your Borisov. That's kind of been going on since it premiered. Mark Edelstein is excellent, but he also disappears for quite a big section of the movie. Yura Borisov is kind of a quieter, more reserved performance until he gets to sort of come out of his shell towards the end of the movie, kind of for the final 20 minutes or so. And I think he's just gotten so much love critically and from other bodies that's kind of the one supporting performance in that movie that stands out the most. I do agree that there are quite a few. I mean, pick any of the hooligans that are dealing with Anora and with Ivan. That's his name, right? Ivan? Yeah. Ivan.
And I do completely agree with everything you're saying. I'm still worried about him for some reason, and until I see him picking up, I feel like I still need more evidence, because I still have him in my Oscar picks, I have him in my Globes picks, but I just feel like I could see a scenario where he ends up missing, or maybe maybe Anora is more American, and maybe for something like the HFPA, it's not going to play as well. I mean,
it takes place in Brighton Beach, and
right.
I think that, I don't know. I think that it's certainly it's become like a populist hit at this point, the movie. Widely considered one of the best of the year, and so many people have seen it, regardless of it being an American production from Neon and Sean Baker. I don't know. I think that Mikey Madison's performance is undeniable in the movie, and then you look beyond her, and who do you see? You kind of see, who's that guy just kind of chilling in the back? Igor. What's up with him? Another point I wanted to make, I think this might be the most exciting race out of any of them. I mean, even if we look beyond the Globes and just to the Oscars, the five I think that make the most sense here are Yura Borisov, Kieran Culkin, Clarence Macklin, Guy Pearce, and Denzel Washington. There's not a bad performance in that grouping. Not that there's necessarily a bad performance anywhere across nominations, but there are lesser movies. I like, if not love, all of those movies, maybe with the exception of Gladiator 2, which I liked fine. But Denzel's excellent. So it's a really good group.
And I have, Kieran Culkin as my winner right now, but it's interesting because I would put Guy Pearce above Macklin, just because I think Pearce, if The Brutalist is going to be potentially a major Best Picture contender, which I buy The Brutalist being more of a contender than Sing Sing, maybe I'm wrong about that, then it makes sense, okay, if we're giving The Brutalist director, where else can we award it? Because I don't buy the Adrian Brody thing. So I feel like it makes... Yeah. I just
Why
don't
not?
think that's... I think his performance is a bit hammy. I think the fact that he already has an Oscar works.
Now we're gonna get in the fight, Shadan.
I mean, it's a good performance, but I think he has an Oscar, and I think the Academy is not gonna feel like they need to give him another one. Granted, I did say the same thing about Renee Zellweger and Judy, and she ended up winning. I just feel like I don't know. Maybe I just feel so strongly about Sing Sing that and I feel like Timothy Chalamet makes more sense than Adrian Brody does.
Yeah.
But I feel like, if because Guy Pearce kind of feels like he's like a Sam Rockwell to me, where
Mm.
like I could see them being like, okay, here's a veteran actor that we've never awarded,
Mm-hmm.
and now he gets his first nomination. Let's just give him the win.
Yeah, I see
So
that.
I'm not ready to write him off completely.
No, I'm not either. Certainly not. I think he belongs in the 6 here. He belongs in the 5 at the Oscars, and I think the trophies belong in his hand at the end of the day. Even if I do love Clarence Macklin's performance, I think that The Brutalist is really gonna. They would fucking market that movie a little more, for God's sake. I know everybody knows about it, but you put out one poster and a trailer with a bunch of words all over it. It's a perfect trailer, but put out something else,
Yeah.
for crying out loud. So it's going to get that limited release on December 20th, and they just need to put a little more attention behind it. I don't know what's wrong with A24 sometimes. I love that studio, and I love a lot of the stuff that they put out, but they just will sometimes be like, oh, by the way, our movie's out.
The issue is that they spread themselves too thin. That's what the issue is.
Yep.
And
Seems like that's a
also,
trend.
like, if we're looking at, I mean, A Real Pain is a movie that I loved, and I feel like it's easier to sell that movie than it is to sell The Brutalist, right?
Certainly,
Like,
yeah.
if you have your screeners, and to your point, you're looking at, well, do I want to watch this movie that was shot on film on my computer, or do I just want to watch this comedy that's like quirky, and I like Jesse Eisenberg and I like Kieran Culkin? Like, which one are you gonna want to prioritize?
Yeah, the cousin centric two-hander or the 4-hour architecture drama. Personally, my vote would be for The Brutalist all day, every day, but that's
I agree with you, although I
taste.
will say A Real Pain just blew me away. I was
It's a
not
good movie.
I thought that movie was just gonna be fine, and I was like, I don't understand why there's Oscar predictions for this comedy, and then I saw it and I was like, everything makes sense. Like, I
Yeah, it's
get
a good
why.
movie. I
It's
like
a
it.
good movie. All right, let's do screenplay. So I
Sure.
have and for screenplay, the HFPA doesn't do adapted or original. It's all one category, 6 nominees. So I have Nora, Conclave, The Brutalist, Sing Sing, Amelia Perez, and A Real Pain.
I have Nora, The Brutalist, Conclave, A Real Pain, The Room Next Door, and Sing Sing, and I have Amelia Perez and The Substance as tied for my alternate. I just threw The Room Next Door in there because of the Pedro Almodovar effect, potential love for a beloved international director taking a swing and doing his first English language feature, although that might hurt it with the HFPA. I don't know. But like I said, if that movie's going to get any love, it's going to be at this awards show. So I threw it in here. And Amelia Perez is probably what ends up getting that slot, but they can award it. I don't have to.
No, that's a really smart. I agree. I think Pedro, like, that movie's got to show up somewhere at the HFPA, and screenplay seems like the safest place for it to be. So, that's a smart
No harm, no
pick.
foul if it doesn't end up there. I don't know.
Yeah, safe pick. I don't smart pick. And I think, to be honest, I think Amelia Perez, just in terms of the screenplay, it's a weak screenplay. Like, it doesn't deserve to be. But
yeah, I mean the movie sucks, but I've said this.
But the screenplay,
the screenplay sucks too. The whole thing is bad. It's a dire state of affairs.
Yeah. Oh. I would rather see a Room Next Door get in here, but I just feel like
I'd rather see Nickel Boys or Challengers or something or Queer or something interesting.
I mean,
but
and
that's
all
not
of
going to
those
happen.
are possibilities just based on particularly queer. I mean, Luca Guadagnino has had a great
Yeah,
year, and so
he's had a
like,
great year. I just think that challengers is the thing that'll probably show up more than something like queer. I think queer is kind of gonna live and die starting and stopping with Daniel Craig. And that's just because it's a more audacious, inventive, experimental movie than the sexy tennis drama starring the
and
most famous woman alive.
I completely agree with you, but the run that Luca Guadagnino has been on has just been hit after hit after hit,
I'm with
and
you.
I would like to see him recognized. Will, why don't you read off? We have 3 categories. Pick a category. 3 categories left.
Which 3 do you have? I have 4 left.
Oh wait, am I missing something?
Oh God,
So
I
we
have
have
5 left. Oh no.
Wait,
Well, I
what do we
threw
have?
in score and song. I didn't know if we were doing that.
Yeah, score and song and animated feature. What else?
I also had foreign language feature and box
Oh
office
yeah.
achievement.
Oh, I didn't even think about. I didn't do the box office one.
That's
Okay,
okay.
tell me
Well,
your box office.
sure, we can go right to that. Yeah, this
Yeah,
is another dire state of affairs. I have
yeah.
Beetlejuice, Deadpool and Wolverine, Dune Part 2, Gladiator 2, Inside. Oh my God, 2, 2, 2, 2. Inside Out 2, Moana 2, Twisters, which is also a 2, and Wicked Part 1. And then the alternate I have here is it ends with us.
Wait, how many? How many? Isn't it just gonna be 6?
So it's 8 in this category. Every other category is
Oh,
6, but this one has 8.
okay. I
Yep.
didn't know that. Shame on me. I was like, why
That's
is
okay.
Will? Why is he? I was like, he keeps going. Stop.
Yeah, it's unfortunate stuff.
God, the world where I could see It Ends With Us actually being nominated, though.
Yeah.
Like, what a way to get people to watch your show.
Yeah, last year, here were the nominees last year. Barbie, which ended up winning. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, John Wick Chapter 4, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1, which is now just Dead Reckoning, Oppenheimer, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, the Super Mario Bros. Movie, and Taylor Swift The Eras Tour.
Okay, well, I'm gonna make an argument that as a whole, last year's lineup was stronger than this year's lineup.
Yep.
Potential lineup, I should say. Ooh. Okay, so what do you think is gonna do you feel strongly about any movie potentially winning that?
Yeah, I think Wicked will win.
Oh yeah. Obviously.
Just because
Okay.
I mean, last year Barbie was not only the highest grossing movie, but it was arguably the most popular.
Yeah.
That's kind of more what this, I mean, the colloquial term that people use for this award is the popcorn award. So, like, I mean, Wicked's going to end this year as the most popular movie. I just think
Yeah.
that's undeniable. If you
No,
had
you're
asked
absolutely right.
yeah, if you had asked somebody in March, they would have said Dune Part 2, but that's not happening anymore.
And can I tell you, just like anecdotally, the people in my life who like go to the movies once every 5 years have all gone to see Wicked. Like the people that never
Yep.
post about movies are posting about like, oh, I went to see Wicked. It was so good.
Yeah.
It's really caught on in a way that I wasn't expecting. I not necessarily thought that it was going to be like a niche thing, but I did not think it was going to explode the way that it has, and I'm really shocked.
I'm not shocked. I don't know. I think a musical that's been on stage for 20 years and also stars one of the most famous pop stars in the world and is just a massive production and has had a massive marketing campaign and press tour. I think really broadened the horizons for a lot of people. Yeah, but I think this is another easy pick. I think the others just kind of round out the 8. But It Ends With Us, I think, could be an interesting addition here just because everything else is, I mean, Wicked is a piece of IP, but it is the first. Everything else is a sequel in this category. It Ends With Us being another piece of, it's a piece of IP, made a lot of money. It was a surprise hit.
Yeah.
So
Okay, now I'm a little bit depressed, so I'm gonna read my animated feature predictions. So
much
I have
happier, sort of.
yeah, because I love the wild robot, and anytime I get to say the wild robot just makes me happier. So I have the
Yeah.
wild robot, Inside Out 2, Moana 2, Memoir of a Snail, Flow, and Wallace and Gromit.
Yeah, I probably should have Moana 2 in the 6 here. Um, I don't. I have it as my alternate. The 6 that I have are Flow, Inside Out 2, Memoir of a Snail, Piece by Piece, Wallace and Gromit, and The Wild Robot. I
I
just threw
had
Piece
Piece
by
by
Piece in
Piece.
here. Yeah. You have it as the
I
alternate?
had that yeah, I had that as my alternate. I had it as well, and then when I saw Moana 2 explode the way that it did, which I was
I
not
know.
also not expecting. Like I thought it was gonna do well, but I think it got the highest animated opening ever, like
Yep.
highest Thanksgiving opening. When I saw it explode the way that it did, I was like, oh, it's gonna get in there. So
Yeah. Yeah. It probably will. I'm just as a somebody who did not enjoy his time at the cinema for that. I decided to put it as his alternate, but I'm also a fool, so take everything with a grain of salt.
a protest alternate.
Yeah,
Okay, so read me your international feature picks.
yeah. Here I
I'm
have. This is
excited
another
about this.
interesting category. I have
Yeah.
All We Imagine Is Light, Amelia Perez, The Girl with the Needle, I'm Still Here, The Seed of the Sacred Fig, Vermiglio, and my alternate is Kneecap.
Okay, so does Amelia Perez not would that not qualify here?
No, I believe
Or
it
you,
qualifies
or you
because
just don't
it's.
have it getting in?
Oh no, I have it. Amelia Perez was the
Oh, you
second
did?
movie I
Okay.
named. Yep.
Sorry. I was
No, that's
like,
all right. Yeah,
um,
Amelia Perez is definitely getting in here.
yeah. Okay, read me your six again. Sorry, I got distracted.
No, that's all right. All We Imagine Is Light, Amelia Perez, The Girl with the Needle, I'm Still Here, The Seed of the Sacred Fig, Vermiglio, and my alternate is Kneecap.
Okay, so those five I feel very strongly about. The sixth slot, I really don't know where to go. uh I'm torn.
What are
I
you
feel
torn
like
between?
Kneecap makes the most sense. Um
Kneecap is an interesting one.
yeah. I mean, I wonder if something like Green Border could potentially
God,
surprise.
I would love that.
Yeah, it's not
It's
gonna
an
happen.
incredible film. It's not going to
I
happen, but it's so
love
good.
that movie.
Yeah,
I could talk about that movie. If people listening take anything away from this podcast, please watch Green
it's
Border.
so good. It's really great.
But yeah.
Yeah. It's a category that I think is has it always has so many possible films that could fit the bill. It just kind of always comes down to the 5 or 6 that you expect. I think that Vermiglio though is an interesting one. I really liked that. I saw it a few weeks ago, and it's a really solid family drama set in Italy, and it's coming out I believe on Christmas. So I don't know if it's going to get the love just because again it's another one of those things that only certain audiences have seen, whereas Kneecap was a Sundance premiere and it's now playing on Netflix. Um, I think those two are kind of interchangeable for me, but the rest, the other 5, I think are kind of set in stone.
Is there a scenario where maybe Flo becomes a double nominee, or we see something like No Other Land get in there?
Look, No Other Land belongs in any category that has the word best in the title. It's
Completely
one
agree.
of the best movies I've seen this year. It's one of the best. I think is the best documentary of the decade, um, certainly of this year. I would love for it to receive a nomination. I don't know if it happens.
Yeah, I don't know if it happens, but given that they don't do docs, I wonder if like
Right.
that might be a way for them to be like, here.
Also,
I don't know.
also worth noting, no distributor still in the U.S. Not that necessarily matters for the HFPA, but who's pushing it
Yeah.
other than
Which is
critics and
crazy.
people who saw it?
Which I mean, just that it's shown up anywhere, the amount of passion that it has.
Mm-hmm.
Again, maybe it shows up here as a way to be like, oh, people should be paying attention to this.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, my friend. Okay, so I'm gonna do best score. So I
Yeah, let's do it.
have Conclave, Dune Part 2, which we know is not going to be qualified for the Oscars, but I feel like it's Hans Zimmer. I have The Brutalist, Emilia Perez, Challengers, and I have The Wild Robot.
That's a good
Just
call.
because it's Chris Bowers, who I adore.
Yeah.
But I should say, I think my alternate here would actually be maybe Saturday Night, because John Baptiste is much beloved. It's a fantastic score. It's a score that's been pushed heavily. Yeah.
The 6 I have are The Brutalist, Challengers, Conclave, Dune Part 2, Saturday Night, and The Wild Robot, with an alternate being Emilia Perez. Yeah, I think Saturday Night, John Baptiste, helming that score, I think is definitely going to get some love. It's a very good score.
It is
Yeah,
phenomenal.
Dune Part 2 being ineligible but still submitted to the Oscars, I think, is an interesting situation. I think it certainly belongs in any conversation surrounding Best Original Score. This is a good category again. Wild Robot, Chris Bowers' score is excellent. Conclave with all those cellos. Could listen to it all day. Challengers, of
love
course,
it.
Reznor and Ross, and
Yeah.
then The Brutalist. I mean, Daniel Blumberg's score is my favorite of the year for sure. So,
Yeah.
be curious to see what ends up here.
Yeah, I do have to say, I think just based on the conversations that we've had thus far, like Emilia Perez is the biggest question mark of the night for me, because
Yeah.
I feel like they're going to go really big for it. I have it all over my predictions, but I see a scenario where like it misses score, maybe only gets one supporting actress in there, maybe doesn't get screenplay. Like I wonder, which then I feel like if there's a scenario where it misses these things with HFPA, which it should be maybe locked, quote unquote, for those categories, how then do we read that tea leaf? But that's going to be like a big thing that I'm going to be watching for on Monday.
Yeah, I think the big thing that differentiates these two voting bodies is I think I shared this last time I was on with you. Directors and producers adore Emilia Perez, which I think, gives it a little bit more favorable chance at the Oscars, whereas the Hollywood Foreign Press Association is a little different. So there could be some variation there. Regardless, though, I think it shows up in a lot of places, or has a chance of showing up in a lot of places, more than probably any other film. Speaking of which, speaking of categories where it will show up, possibly twice.
Yeah. Oh, hit me.
Yeah, I have El Mal from Emilia Perez, Mi Camino from Emilia Perez, Kiss the Sky from The Wild Robot, I Always Wanted a Brother from Mufasa the Lion King, Piece by Piece from You'll Never Guess It, Piece by Piece, and like a Bird from Sing Sing. My alternate here is Beautiful That Way from The Last Showgirl, which is the song that ends the film, sung by none other than Miley Cyrus.
I have those 6. I think if I had an alternate, and I don't even know if the HFPA people have seen this, but it would probably be like the song from Will and Harper, just because it's sung by Kristen Wiig, I think. So
yeah, I know a lot of people want that.
Yeah, so it seems like it could be a starry pick. But no, those are the 6 that I have. I have to be honest, I'm not excited about Best Original Song this year.
No.
We should also mention that Diane Warren has a song in contention, so that could always show up because she's Diane Warren.
You can,
but
you can I don't know, Nickelodeon slime me right on camera if that happens.
Okay, next podcast, I'm gonna find a way to deliver slime to wherever
Sounds
you
good.
are.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't feel strongly about I think, like I said, best supporting actor is probably the category that I'm most interested by.
Mm,
Um like most excited to see where it goes. I think both actress categories have a lot of really interesting contenders where we could see
I
a lot
agree.
of surprises. I think as a whole, actress probably seems more interesting than actor to me, but I feel like actor could also throw in some names that we're not expecting.
Yeah.
Yeah, any final thoughts, Will?
Not really. I think that the Globes are always fascinating. I'm curious to see who ends up getting nominations on Monday. I hope that a couple of people in particular and a couple of movies in particular get honored. Like I'm really backing Fernanda Torres for I'm Still Here. I'm really, I'm behind performances like Glenn Powell for Hitman, Sebastian Stan for A Different Man. I think it would be great if Saoirse Ronan ends up anywhere, Blitz, stuff like that. But it's down to the HFPA now, and that is
Yeah, I would love
a
to see Blitz
dangerous
anywhere.
process.
I would love to see Nickel Boys anywhere. Sing Sing I feel pretty good in, but I feel like
Yep,
just seeing those nominations actually come through would mean a lot. I really do love Hugh Grant in Heretic, and I
he's
just feel
so
like
good.
that's not going to happen anywhere else. And if it happens at the Globes, I'll be ecstatic. Let me ask you just like a one final thing to wrap.
Yeah,
What would be like X thing misses and Will smashes his computer and throws a fit?
X thing misses and Will smashes his computer and throws a fit. Gosh, it's a great question. I'm looking now. I'm scrolling.
I'll
Probably
say
probably El Mal from Amelia Perez. I'd be really no. Uh,
that is the best song from Amelia Perez, though. If I had to pick one song, that's the song
yeah.
that I would pick.
I don't know, something like Challengers in musical or comedy, like that is the place it belongs, and it should be in more awards conversation, regardless of it being one of the better movies of the year that people are kind of universally saying. I wouldn't smash my computer, but I'd be bummed.
Yeah.
The smash my computer things are kind of like are things that I want to happen but don't expect to. So I wouldn't necessarily smash my computer. Like if Nickel Boys doesn't show up anywhere, am I going to be furious? Of course. But at the same time, I don't necessarily expect it to, just because I don't often expect anything from the Golden Globes. They're not
I think
designed to make me happy. They're designed to make me roll my eyes.
I think as I've mentioned all season long, Coleman Domingo is the performance for me.
Yep.
So if he does if in some scenario he misses, and then I think, with Best Actress Drama, like I put in a lot of maybe like pessimistic, like of course they're gonna name check so and so, but like I really loved something like We Live in Time, like if either Florence or Andrew show up,
Yeah.
that would be nice to see. But Will, I know you have to get out of here. Tell the people
All
where
good.
they can find you, and that'll be a wrap for us.
They can find me at by Will Bjarnar on Twitter, Will Bjarnar on Blue Sky and Letterboxd as well. And then I'm writing in a bunch of places, In Session, Geek Vibes Nation, a bunch of others.
Nice. I am at Shadan Larky everywhere. And if you could just rate and review this podcast so people can find us, and share the pod. And let us know who you think is gonna show up on Monday. Let us know if we missed anyone, and then we will do a reactions podcast and check in with the nominations that actually did shock us come Monday morning.
God help
Will,
us.
have a great weekend. Thank you
Thanks,
for joining
Shadan.
me. I really appreciate it. And I'll see you soon, friend.
All right. Appreciate you having me on as always. Thank you.